When we develop our schedule, we use a schedule network diagram. This particular network diagram uses three colors to depict each of the three different paths that our project takes from beginning to end. Path 1 is blue, Path 2 is pink, and Path 3 is purple. Some activities are on all three paths, like Activity A. Some activities can happen at the same time, such as activities G, I, and B. This allows the path to diverge or separate. When there are multiple dependencies between activities, the paths may converge again. For example, activities J and C merge into activity D because they each have a precedence relationship or handoff to activity D. In order to figure out how long our project will take, we are going to conduct a pass through our project schedule from left to right chronologically from beginning to end to figure out how long it will take. This is called a forward pass. A forward pass is a critical path method used to determine the early start and early finish dates for all of the activities in our schedule. First, let's explore the key that lays out the placement of different data points for an activity node. Place the early start date of an activity in the upper left corner. Place the early finish date of an activity in the upper right corner. Place the duration of the activity in the upper middle of the node. In our example, the durations are expressed in months. So for activity A, the early start date is 1, the early finish date is 1, and the duration of activity A is also 1. Let's assume that our project starts on January 1st. So based on the numbers in activity A, this means activity A is going to start at the beginning of January, it will take up the entire month of January, and it will end at the end of January. Now, I have a question for you. If activity A takes 1 full month, what do you think is the earliest that activities G, I, and B can begin? In other words, what are the early starts for these activities? You may pause the video at any time to determine the answer, and then resume the video when you're ready to hear the correct answer. If you said 2 or February, you are correct. Now, if you add the durations of these activities, you can determine their early finishes. G and I both have durations of 2 months, so they will take all of February and all of March. That means the early finishes of these activities are 3, or the end of March. Activity B is only 1 month long, so it will take up the entire month of February, and the early finish will be 2, or the end of February. If you're thinking, wait a minute, some months have more days than others, don't let that bother you. In terms of our example, all months are considered equal. Now, let's consider our forward pass. If the earliest that G and I can finish is 3, or the end of March, what is the earliest that H and J can start? And if the earliest that B can finish is 2, or the end of February, what is the earliest that C can start? Feel free to pause the video at any time and resume when you're ready. If you said the early start for activities H and J is 4, or the beginning of April, you are correct. And if you said the earliest that activity C can start is 3, or the beginning of March, you are also correct. And then you can determine from the durations that H takes up 2 months, J takes 4 months, and C takes 7 months, so you can determine their early finishes. Now let's move to activity D. We have something new here. It is the convergence or merger of 2 paths into one. Activities J and C merge into activity D. If the early finish of J is 7, or July, and the early finish of C is 9, or September, what is the earliest that D can start? You may pause the video at any time to determine the answer, and then resume the video when you're ready to hear the correct answer. If you said 10, or October, you are correct. So when you have a point where 2 paths converge, you have to wait for both of the activities to finish before the next activity can begin. In this case, activity C took the longest, and activity D could not begin until activity C had completed at 9, or the end of September. Okay, moving on with our forward pass, you may determine that we have another point of convergence where activities H and D merge into activity E. Since the early finish of H is 5 and the early finish of D is 10, What is the early start of E? Feel free to pause the video at any time and resume when you're ready. If you said 11 or November, you are correct. Activity F is pretty straightforward and will begin and end in the month of December. So you have just completed a forward pass. You have determined the early start and early finish dates of all of the activities by moving through the schedule chronologically from start to finish. Nice job!